Halo 5 has some pretty cool weapon attachments and they modify your guns in specific ways. For example, the long barrel increases your red reticle range, extending aim assist to longer distances. The kinetic bolts improve bullet damage against vehicles, making your weapons more effective. The stabilization jets greatly decrease weapon recoil and thus increase accuracy. Man, we can go on and on. Man, what the hell was that? That wasn't supposed to be in the video. Delete. But anyway, I'm not somebody that will tell you, oh, the long barrel is the best or the laser targeter is the best. Nah, that's not me. Although the long barrel and laser are beasts, not gonna lie. But I think there is a time and place for everything, and each attachment has a unique role, which gives you an advantage in certain scenarios. Prime example I like to use is the silencer. If you know you're going to be sneaking around an enemy base, then it's good to use a silencer on your weapons. Make less noise and you don't appear on the radar when firing. Pair that with the advanced sensor armor mod and you basically turn into a ninja.
I'm not getting used to it because I don't want to, man. But if you're gonna fucking leave it, then I'll use it! I'll fucking sell my soul! I'll do it!
No, not that guy, but the point is all of these attachments straight up make your weapons better and can be utilized to improve your combat performance. So they're all useful except for one. The threat marker. Man, the threat marker. Remember that thing that marks enemies? Anyone? Now, when I play Warzone, I see players using the attachments we touched on earlier and all the remaining ones as well. Long barrels, silencers, etc., even the rare one like the dampener. But in all this time of playing Warzone, which is a lot by the way, like I'm talking about days, man, I have never seen anyone use the threat marker. Seriously, not a single time. So naturally, Aozolai sits there like a discount Halo philosopher and asks the question, why? Why does no one use the threat marker? And after thinking, being bewildered for some time with no answers, I finally asked the question to myself, Aozolai, does yo ass even use the threat marker? And my answer is simple, no, I don't, because it's useless. I find the threat marker inferior to the other attachments like the long barrel and the laser targeter. Thus, there is never a scenario where I even consider scrapping those attachments for it. And to understand why exactly, we need to know what this attachment really does. So let's quickly review. Sorry about that, I had to clear my throat. Might have gotten the coronavirus from a Corona bottle of beer or something like that, my god. Anyway, let's do the review. The threat marker will mark enemy targets inside a weapon's red reticle range. It takes about half a second for it to lock on, and when it does, it will continue to track your target until your reticle is no longer on the enemy, in which case tracking stops after 4.35 seconds. Also, switching weapons will break the tracking, and even if both weapons have the threat marker attachment, the tracking will stop when you switch out the weapon that initiated the tracking. Another nice thing about this attachment is it will also track vehicles, and it can track up to 3 targets at once. And finally, it can even lock onto invisible targets and track them too, assuming you spot them and get some shots off to turn your reticle red. So in the mind of Aozolai, all this stuff is really cool, and all these traits should be an incentive to use the threat marker on the battlefield. I mean seriously, you get tracking on your target, which means if they go behind walls or other obstacles, you know the exact direction they're going in. No more guessing games on the target's movement behind cover because the information is being tracked on your screen. You don't have to predict the target's movement, but instead you can pre-aim and be more lethal with your shots. But let's stop real quick and think about it. Who the hell cares? Honestly, why the hell would you pass up something like a laser targeter, which improves a weapon's aim assist and accuracy, for the threat marker? Why pass up on a long barrel or stabilization jets also? I mean, you would literally be passing up on extra bullet magnetism and weapon accuracy for an attachment that just tracks targets. I personally do not see that as a worthy trade. Oh my god, my voice, man, the coronavirus is getting to me. My god. But let's continue. And speaking of that target tracking, how useful even is that? When do you really struggle in Warzone trying to predict an enemy's movement? It's mainly around armories or the garage, right? It's easy to trick someone with your movement around those places, many doors, walls, and stairs, but almost every other instance behind rocks, statues, hills, on the outside, the threat marker doesn't help much at all. And that's because the combat is taking place in relatively open areas. Man, and all this leads directly to map design. design. Because most of the Warzone maps are so open and huge as hell, the threat marker isn't that effective. Even if your target is marked, they can just hide behind cover or retreat without fear of being pressed up. Now, does this mean that the threat marker is completely useless? No, it doesn't. It can still help you out in certain situations to track your target's movement. All I'm saying is it's pointless to use because it's competing against long barrels, laser targeters, dampeners, etc. Honestly, you'd be out of your mind to pass up on those attachments for the threat marker. And besides, they're lower rec levels, so come on. Now all of that is for Warzone, but hypothetically, if attachments were available for arena maps, like for a new Slayer game mode where attachments were allowed and other weapon customization, then all this changes. Then the threat marker would be pretty useful. Just think about it. Imagine having a DMR or an AR or even a Magnum with the threat marker on a map like Coliseum. Being able to know exactly where your enemy is very helpful in that kind of map, or even Plaza, the Rig, and so on. Many different routes, right? Many walls, obstacles, entrances, and hallways. And you'd have an advantage knowing where your enemy is going, or where they're trying to go. But obviously, this is not possible in Halo 5. Weapon customization in Arena isn't allowed. But we can simulate this in Destiny 2. We do comparative examples with this game all the time, so let's do another one. In Destiny, there is a hunter helmet called Foe Tracer. Essentially, it works like the threat marker and tracks your enemy's movement, allowing you to better predict where your enemy will be. Pretty nice, right? On smaller maps in Halo 5's Warzone maps, and with more hallways, walls, obstacles, and so on. Places where tracking is actually useful. So it's no surprise that using Foe Tracer allows you to pre-aim and judge the position of your target consistently and effectively, which in turn leads to advantages in combat scenarios and easier kills. So my point is, the threat marker would function like Foe Tracer if it was on arena maps. It would actually be one of the go-to attachments, unlike in Warzone where practically no one uses it at all. I mean, again, how many times have you guys seen someone use this attachment in Warzone? Like, I'm not joking, I have not seen it once. But I kinda understand it, because in the end, this comes down to a concept of the free market system. Talking about economics, boys, in Halo. Goddamn. When you offer a product, the consumers are going to weigh their options with their available alternatives. And there's quite a few other attachments in Halo 5, other alternatives. And given that absolutely no one uses the threat marker in Warzone, this is a strong indicator they're using the alternatives. So long barrel, laser, stabilization jets, etc. Because they're better products. Players find those attachments to be superior and use them instead. Now let's break from this for a second. It's kind of like restaurants in real life, right? They all sell food, but some are just way better than others. And it comes down to the basics: food choice, price, quality, atmosphere, whatever. Now choosing Halo 5's attachments in Warzone is kind of the same thing. You weigh your options, the stat boosts, and everything else. You got pros and cons, and you got the alternatives. So despite being amazing on paper with all these cool tracking traits, when it comes down to application, the threat marker struggles against its alternatives, and it's quite obvious. Thus, being the Halo capitalist that I am, I don't think it's unfortunate that the threat marker is underused, even though it is a decent attachment. I don't feel bad. I don't care. This thing deserves all the love the players show it, and that is none. Thank you for watching, and as always, until next time.